Qualification Highlights, a complete wrap-up of today's events at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Your hosts are Channel 4's racing expert Gary Lee and United States Auto Club historian Donald Davidson.
Good evening. It's the month of May. We always start out pale with dark hair and end up either tan or sunburned with light hair. We started the morning with 3 spots. The last row was vacant, and at one point we thought we might have some very fast qualifying speeds because of the early morning practice session. Steve Chassis at 207 miles per hour, and I know you happen to enjoy the day very much.
I loved today. I thought the whole qualification procedure on all 4 days was great, and sometimes there's downtime, and if I was a fan in the stands, maybe I wouldn't care for that, but that's great. I mean, the tension builds. It gives you a chance to look down the who's left, and you create your scenario on what you think is going to happen. And I have no complaints with the way things went, because at 4:45, you know, the rush came maybe a little earlier than you thought, but there were a lot of people that made attempts that maybe you didn't think were going to. So everybody had a shot, and if somebody had to wave off, they had a chance to get back on the back of the line. They could come back through again. And maybe some people like to see cars waiting in line and somebody dramatically trying to get out and the gun goes off and they're stuck there. I don't get any particular enjoyment out of that. I like to see everybody have a decent shot, and they had it today. I thought it was great.
Now, where did you spend most of the day?
Well, I traveled around. I was in the air-conditioned booth for part of the time.
That's why you enjoyed the day, because it was 86 degrees and you were inside.
I went down to the press room, and of course that's air-conditioned as well.
He's not sunburned. There's no blister or peeling. Well, we did have a lot of activity in practice, and like we said earlier, we had one very fast speed turned down by Steve Chassis at 207 miles an hour. The question was, could he maintain that speed when he qualified? Well, we'll come back and find out. Stay with us.
Child's play. But to him, driving the Domino's Pizza Hot One is no game. Watch for Domino's Pizza Team Shearson and co-sponsors Mobil 1 and Coca-Cola in the IndyCar World Series. Domino's Pizza delivers Al Unser Jr. A winner picks a winner every time.
Save with our Hot One Special, a large 2-topping pizza plus 4 Cokes delivered to your door in 30 minutes or less for just $9.95. Call Domino's Pizza and order your Hot One Special today.
This being Sunday, qualifying began at 12 noon. The first driver out, a wildly colored number 87, Steve Chassis, driving for a first-time female car owner that we'll talk about more a little bit later. And again, he had taken a practice lap at 207 earlier. They changed tires. Okay. Dropped to what, 201?
Went to 201, so they put the original tires back on, is the version I hear, and then he went out to qualify.
Took the green flag, took 1 lap, and guess what? Speed did not go back up. It went down. Substantially down, 195.4, and they said, that's not going to be nearly fast enough. So the yellow comes out. So that was the first attempt against car 87, and that brings up Pancho Carter. And you say, wait a minute, Pancho qualified last week. Now, we talk about car hopping. Pancho has spent more time in a variety of race cars this season. He got upside down in car 29 on the opening weekend of qualifying. Then he took over car 29T, which is the one he qualified last week at 203.781, but he's been out this week working with car 29TT, which would be a second backup.
Okay, well, what happened was they weren't sure if he was going to be bumped or not, but they wanted to make sure that he had another car available to him if they wanted it. So they got this car out running so well that he did what Danny Sullivan did yesterday. He said, this is the one I think would be the better car in the race. So they formally withdrew the one that he qualified last week, and then he went ahead and he did okay.
Shortly after noon, first lap was a 207.351. Then he dropped down just a tick to a 206 clocking, 206.082. And then it was 203.390, the fourth lap at 203.671. And that would give Pancho a 4-lap average of 205.154. And we had a chance to talk to Pancho following his qualification run. Pancho, who made the decision to withdraw the 1 car and qualify the TT car?
It was a group decision. We talked about it last night, and Andy Keenapensky and John Barnes and myself, and there have been different ones oscillating back and forth, but I just didn't feel that it was the smart move to sit around all day and not get a good race set up. I feel that, you know, we were a little behind, especially yesterday. If we'd have had a good safe speed, we could have run yesterday, maybe run a little bit more today when it's real hot, which is a very possibility for race day. They could have these same conditions. we really don't know what the car is going to do on full load. Hopefully it won't make any changes at all. It'll stay, you know, fairly consistent. But I think we need more time with the car, and I think now with the Hardee's special, the 29 TT, we're going to have that opportunity to do that this afternoon.
2 years ago, you led the field down for the start. You could start in the back row this year. With all the concern for turbulence, is that playing on your mind?
No, not really. I mean, there's going to be a lot of turbulence through the whole race, and I think that's one thing that we want to concentrate on today is getting the car set up so it'll run good in spoil there or in the turbulence. So, you know, the guys that are up front are going to have an advantage, but before long they're going to be in turbulence lapping cars, and the only one that really has a real clear advantage is the leader. You know, the second car back is in quite a bit of turbulence too. So, you know, I start on the front row and then finish last. Maybe I can start back towards the last row and finish first. So that's what we're shooting for with the Hardee's special.
So he improves his position on the bump list from 2nd to 5th, and that is Pancho Carter. Then Phil Kruger, and I think if there has been a people's choice last season and this year, and a real anachronism when it comes to racing, because Phil is the kind of guy that works in the car, drives the car, either works on it for himself or somebody else. He was the crew chief for Dennis Firestone, put a new Lola together for Dennis. Dennis had the first crash. The team bought another Lola that he put together, plus got the backup car ready, and then when Firestone had the second crash, he took the backup car out, and doggone it, we thought he was going to put it in the show. In fact, he was looking for a 2:04 average, went on the first lap at 2:03.920, but actually made contact up in the north short chute on that lap. He came on down through the first lap. Here's the first lap here as he heads through 3, and now he heads up to the short chute, actually makes contact with the outside wall right there, but he finishes that lap, and he told us later he really wasn't sure if any damage had been done to the car. So now he's down to complete the first lap with a clocking of 2:03.920. He heads down into 1, and the car just gives out. And there is the contact again, head on, but he'd scrubbed off enough speed that he only, the car gets airborne there, bangs off the inside fence, spins to a stop, and we had a chance to talk with Phil Kruger at the infield hospital after he was examined and was determined he suffered only from some cuts on the knees. In slow motion, once again, he loops it coming low as the tire simply gives away, or perhaps the suspension hits the wall virtually head-on right there, but the car does what it's supposed to do. It falls apart, but protects the driver. And once again, we had a chance to talk with Phil following his run.
Well below the line with the left side. He's spinning in one. Just tapped the wall in the short chute.
Well, what can we say? It was like the coach turned back into a pumpkin. This month has been so trying for the entire crew. You've been working on the cars, making them go fast as a crew member, and then as a driver, and now apparently it's all over.
Yeah, for this month. You know, what do you say? We wanted to go out there and do it easy, and we weren't really pushing it. You know, I made an error, got caught by the wind, something, but I did give the short chute wall a pretty good clout, and, you know, sort of thought about it going all the way down the straightaway, whether it was going to hold up, and it didn't. So
You're okay.
Oh, yeah, I'm fine, yeah.
You said this morning you wanted a 20 or 2:04 run, and you were like 2:03.9, so you're right in the ballpark.
Close enough, yeah, close enough.
And there was no indication of what was going to happen before it happened.
Well, I bumped the wall in the short chute. I mean, I give it a pretty good whack. And it felt okay through 4, and felt okay down the straightaway, and then going into 1, it just gave up. So I don't know if I bent the suspension just enough. You know, I'm not sure, but...
You know, most drivers, Donald, show up at the racetrack with an attaché case, and somebody else carries the helmet bag, but this guy works as hard as anybody on the car and quickly takes off the overalls, puts on the driving suit, and a lot of folks were pulling for Phil Kruger.
He's built quite a following. He's been doing this for several years. He's been here since 1981, and then last year he made the race with the only 85
year-old car.
And did almost all the work himself, and he's been a busy man, very frustrated man, but he still took time out to talk with you, and you just, you know, you have to think he belongs in the lineup and he'll be back.
At this point in time, the crews were looking at the temperature and thinking maybe it's too hot now, let's practice. Some other teams that had qualified came out to run some fuel tests as far as race day setups, and we had a lot of practice in the afternoon.
Yes, but then finally Steve Chassis came back at a quarter to 5, and he made his second attempt, but the speed still wasn't there. They had one lap at 200, but after 3 laps with an average of about 199.1, the yellow flagged him. And was he done for the day? No, he was going to be able to get on the back of the line and come through again, but he wasn't in the race at this point. So we have this new team, locally owned team, which is very unusual these days. There's Huey Absalom as the crew chief, Steve Chassie is the driver, and the owners are Bruce and Lydia Loffrey. Now, Lydia, it's very unusual to have a woman as a car owner. So Gary spent a little time with Steve, and let's meet Lydia.
Here he is, the latest media star, a star of billboards now, Steve Chassie. Let's talk about you and the race car on the billboard.
Well, we had a race car that was a show car, and a friend of ours, Joe Carmen, who is an advertising agency person, decided that since there was no other car around town, that he would like to use our car in it. And since he used our car, we thought, well, shoot, you know, he's using our car, he might as well use us also. So we took our car out here at the Speedway, and myself and my crew, and we had some still shots, and it turned up on a billboard in 90 places around town.
So if you see the Pizza Hut car, kind of a maroon shade, and the driver leaning up against the wall as though he's worn out after the race, that's Steve Chassie.
That's me.
And you also have something that is unusual for the Brickyard, a female owner.
That's right. Only 3 in history, and the other 2 that I can recall is, well, I just remembered now, there are 4 actually.
Don't forget about Mary George.
That's, oh, I almost forgot. There was Mary George, Rose Weisert, and Barbara Truman, and Lydia Lochery now. But this is the first Indianapolis-based car owner who's a female. Lydia has been handling all of the financial side of it and all of the administration. So we've kind of worked as a team. I was doing the mechanical side, and she was doing the money side.
What better place to be in the month of May than participating in the Indy 500?
Well, let's talk about your background in racing. What drove you to this point here?
Well, 20 years ago, I was simply the average fan sitting in the seats. 10 years later, I started spending some time in the garages. That interested me more. About 5 years ago, my husband and I bought a limited partnership with another team, and that enabled me to really appreciate the things that go on in putting together an IndyCar team. However, there were so many things that that team was doing that I felt I would love to have a shot at doing myself and maybe do it in somewhat of a different manner. That team folded. For the last 2 years, I was not involved personally with any team, and I hated it. I absolutely had become so spoiled. So it was actually a fluke. Last race day, it was raining, and we had a lot of friends in from out of town, and I had no particular team or garage affiliation to take my friends. And we were walking through the garage, and I said, you know, if I have to put my own team together, I'm going to be associated with a car in the Indy 500 next year. And I did shop around a little bit. I talked to some of the team owners, and I really couldn't find the right combination that I wanted that worked for them and for me. After talking to a lot of people and giving it a lot of thought, I simply decided to put my own team together. The timing seemed to be right for me. The cost is becoming so extreme that I felt if I didn't do it now, I might never have a chance to pull it off.
Let's talk about the cost factor. You have the program put together for Indy, but what happens after Indy? Is it going to take a major sponsor to go on to Milwaukee and on the rest of the kart season?
We feel that after we show what we can do at Indianapolis, it will absolutely be no problem going to other races, because we should pick up a lot of new interest, a lot of additional sponsorship money, and at this point we're fully planning on going to Milwaukee the next weekend after we win the Indy 500.
Steve, if you happen to be watching Art Cross, runner-up in 1953, Springfield Welding's Clay Smith Special, Bessie Lee Paoli, owner from Springfield, Illinois, 1929, first place, Ray Keach, Simplex Piston Ring Special, M.A. Yeagle, owner, M stands for Maud.
Never crossed Donald Davidson. We'll have more after this.
Well, George Walter entered the Dayton Steel Foundry Specials and other cars from 1955 until 1980. The name had been off the entry list for the last few years, but it was back this year. And Rocky Moran, a rookie, hooked up with George Walther. Actually, it was Jeff Walther, the son, that put the team together. But Rocky had been about 2:02 in practice, and then finally this afternoon they decided to go ahead and qualify at whatever speed they could get. They qualified at 199.1 to become the 31st qualifier of the day. And when it was over, Chuck Marlowe talked to Rocky.
Well, congratulations, Rocky, making the field a little bit slower than what you'd anticipated.
Yeah, we've been running 202, close to 203 this morning, and better than that last week. But we're down to one engine, and we had to get it working in 2 days, and it's going away on us, and I don't think it's going to hold up.
Had you anticipated the speeds being that elusive your first trip here?
Yeah, it's a lot of work. Any racetrack is. This one's probably the hardest. So when you don't have everything 100% here with the competition and everything you have, it makes it tough.
Well, of course, that put him in the field as the 31st qualifier, but no one really thought that that would hold up very long.
Well, you really didn't know because there were several good cars in line, and then Dominic Dobson was the next person to go out. Was George Bignotti's son as the crew chief, Bill, and he went ahead and ran as fast as I think he has in recent days at least, and averaged 201.240 miles per hour with a lap at 2:02 in there, and with the 2:01.2 became the 32nd fastest qualifier, and was it Chuck Marlowe that spoke to Dominic Dobson?
Dominic, it's been hard to gather all this in just a week, hasn't it?
It sure has. I tell you, my first day on the track really was Monday, less than a week ago, and I passed my rookie test Tuesday. I think I got a grand total of about 400 miles so far, less than one race. So I'm real happy with the crew and my sponsors, Jim Ward and LA Gear. They've done a great job. Everyone has worked very hard.
How much time did you have with the Chevy?
All right.
Well, this morning, long before practice began, we noticed something interesting developing in the pit area. The pace car was parked down by the scoring pylon with no one else around, and two guys in black shirts walked over. One, A.J. Foyt, the other, young Davy Jones. And A.J. got in and took a couple laps, and we could see A.J. driving with one hand and doing like this. We had a chance to talk to Davy later to find out exactly what A.J. was talking about, and obviously Davy had some problems the last time he went out to qualify and got a little squirrely yesterday and had to gather it in, and A.J. was saying, now this is the way you do it because the car can go faster than what you're driving it. So anyway, Davy Jones, in an 86 March, would become the 33rd driver in the field. First lap, a 2:07.135. That brought the fans to their feet. A second lap, faster, 2:07.455. Third lap, faster, 2:08.715. Fourth lap, only I think driver this month to go faster on every lap, 2:09.176. Average of 2:08.117, the youngest rookie and the fastest rookie. And here's Davy.
Davey, congratulations. Where you been hiding that speed?
I don't know. You know, I did a 2:08 yesterday morning. I went out for my first attempt, and the car was very tail happy. And ever since then, we've just been kind of chasing ourselves, and we almost actually took a step backwards from, you know, the whole month of May so far. And we, you know, a lot of short temperament and, you know, all that, just trying to make the car in fast changes. And, you know, luckily, you know, AJ and all his experience here, I couldn't have had a better opportunity to be here with such a, you know, a great coach. And he made the right adjustments, and, you know, we found the speed.
You know, to study and tutor under a man such as AJ has to be quite an experience for you, too.
Well, you know, it's, I don't really have anything to prove because I feel that I'm here because AJ has picked me and he's been watching me, and I don't have anything to prove to AJ, and I don't have anything really to prove to myself. I know that I can do it, but I'm not going to be able to do it right away. It's going to take some time. So if we work together on it, I think we can both be winners.
We know that AJ gave him lots of advice, but you were noticing that somebody else perhaps had some words of advice.
There was a bit of a stir in the pit area there, and just before Davey went out, he was sitting on the golf cart, and the seat next to him was occupied by Huey Lewis.
What happened to the news?
They were there too, but they didn't get on the golf cart.
Well, after we have one A.J. Foyt entry in the field qualifying with Davy Jones, the old veteran comes out. Now, it's not uncommon for Ziggy, George Snyder, to qualify on the last day. He had a chance, though, earlier in the qualifying last weekend. But today, in a 86 March V6 Turbo Chevy, the only one in the show, at 2:04.8 the first lap, a 2:03.9, a 2:01.9, and a 202.0 for a 4-lap average of 203.192. And again, George Snyder is back in the show as a teammate to Supertech's A.J. Foyt.
Congratulations. George, I'll tell you, for a man who sits behind the wheel of a car only once a year anymore, you have to have nerves of steel and a stomach that doesn't even show any perforations of ulcers.
Well, they kind of did this weekend because they started me a week early. You know, they started me last week, and it got to be pretty hectic today. It's been a hell of a long week, I'll tell you that.
You ever get used to something like this?
Not really. You know, it's tough. It isn't easy. I mean, if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it. It's not easy.
George, what's one of the big reasons for the chase on the speeds this year? You guys just seem to, all crews seem to flounder around a little bit. What's been the big problem?
I don't know. I can't really say. You know, the new radial tires and the new cars, they just kind of don't, for some reason, they don't mix. For some reason, you know, especially when the weather's hot. If it's a cool day and everything, well, then they're pretty good. But the minute the heat comes out, it's another story.
Great to see you back here.
Thank you.
We would be remiss, Donald, if we did not mention that the qualifying run by Ziggy bumped Rocky Moran.
Yes, he was in the field just for, what, about 15 minutes or so, but, you know, they did the best they could.
Next up, second attempt on car 98, the Curb Motorsports March. Ed Pym, and this was the only car Ed Pym has at this point because his backup car is already in the field driven by Tom Sneva.
Right, as a March V8 Buick, or
Okay.
V6 Buick.
So Ed goes out, takes one lap at 198, bumps it up to 199, obviously not fast enough, and he then is waved off, and there's a shot at the skull, number 98 car with Ed Pym on board as he leaves the pit area for his run that was waved off after 2 laps. Now we bring up Rick Miskiewicz, another rookie in car 97, and of course Rick's crew had to put that car back together. He had some trouble coming off the second corner a couple of days ago and banged up the right side. The car was back together. He went out, took 2 laps at 198.1, 198.7, and the yellow came out. Now, Dominic Dobson is on the bubble, and Steve Chassis is ready to go out for his 3rd attempt. So we had a chance to visit with Dominic to see what it feels like to be on the bubble the last day of qualifying at Indy.
All your feelings about the race itself and your feelings about being on the bubble right now.
Well, my feelings about the race is that I just hope I'm in it. My feelings about being on the bubble is as you can imagine, I just a little tense right now, and I really hope our time will hold up. My crew's worked so hard, and we got such a late start, and we've had our trials and tribulations here as a rookie. But I know the feeling now when they describe what it's like to be on the bubble. I wouldn't want to stay like this for a week, I'll tell you that.
Do you suffer the frustrations that the emotions and the gamut of them, the extremes out here at the Motor Speedway, in your other racing experiences, are they as prevalent?
No, I don't think so. I think this is really the peak of motor racing, if certainly not, I think, in the world, really. And I don't know how emotions can run any higher. I think we try and subdue them as race drivers, but certainly they're going on inside.
So now Dominic is on the pole, and the 3rd and final strike for Steve Chassis. It's now or never for Chaz and the new lady car owner and Huey, their chief mechanic. The first lap, a 201.934. Would that be fast enough? The second lap, again, 201.572. Bumps it up to a 202.959 for lap 3. And lap 4 all the way up to 203.5. The 4-lap average, 202.488. That would bump Dominic Dobson. We had a chance to talk to a very happy and very relieved Steve Chassis.
Thank you. Steve, congratulations to be in the show, but I bet you'd like to flip-flop your morning run with your afternoon, wouldn't you?
Sure would, Chuck, but, you know, we worked all day just to get what we got out of it there. And I couldn't cut the corners anymore. I'd look like Lloyd Ruby in the grass just to keep the push under control. I guess when the temperature came up on the track this morning, it just took all the grip away from the front tires, and we worked all day trying to get it back. These guys worked their rear ends off, and I hope it holds up. You know, I don't know who else is left, but that's all we could do, and we have to take it, and we're glad we have it.
Have you ever seen a year that has been so elusive with the setup of the car and the changing track conditions?
No, really, I haven't, and you can't blame it on one thing. You know, it's a combination. And if you don't have the combination right on the money and can move around with it, then you're like us. You're scratching all month long. You're frustrated, and tippers get short. And fortunately, it all came together here at the last minute. Let's hope that it holds.
Okay, so now we've got Sammy Swindell on the bubble with chassis in the race. And the next person out is Ed Pym. Has been able to come through the line because the line's getting shorter. As cars are running to completion, there's not that many more ready to go. So Ed Pym made an attempt yesterday, won today, waved off a 198, and then all of a sudden speed comes from nowhere. Another miracle. He opens with 202.7 and the crowd goes crazy. And then it's a 203.8, a 203.1, a 203.3, and he's in the race at 203.2. And another happy driver in the lineup.
Well, we were down to our last try, and I don't know, it was what, 20, 30 minutes to go. So we knew it was either, go out or forget about it for this year. So we made a few changes, put on new tires, went out there. The first lap around, the car felt a little better. Not great, but it felt a little better, and I thought, well, if I hold my breath for 4 laps, we might be able to get in this thing. So the first time around, I saw the 203 or 202, and I said, all right, if I can just hang it right here for a while, we'll be all right. And luckily, it is held in there. The oil light was on for the last 2 laps, and the fuel light came on for the 3rd lap. So between all the buttons and the lights going on and off, I was pretty busy.
Well, by that time, the pit lane was empty. Rick Moskiewicz had it to himself, so he made another run. He was only running 196 miles an hour, but they decided to go ahead and run the full 4 laps. He got 196.19. There were no other qualifiers, and that was the field. But we'll be back with more after these messages.
Open wheel racing at its best as WFMS Radio presents the 42nd Annual Budweiser Night Before the 500, Saturday, May 23rd at Indianapolis Raceway Park. The fastest cars ever on the IRP Oval, the Bosch Volkswagen Super Vs, plus the Jolly Rancher Midgets. Gates open Saturday, May 23rd at 2, qualifying at 5:30. Racing starts at 8 with the Volkswagen Super Vs. The Budweiser Night Before the 500, Saturday, May 23rd at Indianapolis Raceway Park, 5 miles northwest of the Motor Speedway on Route 136 at Claremont.
We began today talking about how much you enjoyed today's qualifying activity, but you know, Donald, over the years there have been comments about, well, let's change the format, and every few years they emerge again, and we've kicked those around again this year. So I had a chance to go talk to Bill Donaldson in the main office at the Speedway and say, give us that new format that we may be looking at next year or the year after that.
Are there any other plans right now that we can talk about for maybe next year or the year after that? I would be remiss if we did not talk and I ask you about the real possibility of changing the format for qualifying. That has come up again. That is really not a new idea, but some people think it is. How realistic is it that maybe in the next couple of years we'll change the format?
Well, as you said, it's not a new idea, but this year it was given, I think, as serious of consideration as we have since I've been here. And I think that as we gather more and more input from the teams and the drivers, the accessory companies, and find out what their input on the situation is, I think we'll be in a better position to answer that. But we certainly, as I've said before, anything that's more entertaining for the fans that makes sense, we're going to take a strong look at, and that's something that in the last few years more and more attention has been given to, and we'll do whatever, if it makes sense, we'll do it for the race fans.
Okay, let me ask you. You've been here since, what, 1964? How do you like qualifications, and should we change the format?
Well, I understand the fact that they should do things, or they feel that they should do things to make it more entertaining for the fans during the long breaks and so forth, but boy, I wish they'd leave it alone. I mean, just look at this year and look at the day that we had today, that some of those situations wouldn't have existed under the new plan. I'd say, please leave it the way it is.
Maybe we could just shorten qualifying from 4 to 6 every day. Do away with the practice through the hot afternoon.
Oh, I could, I'm not averse to some changes, but the basic format, I like it. I like it a lot.
I'll vote with you. I've always said that why change it if we don't need to. Tradition is fine as long as it doesn't get in the way of progress, and I don't know if it's progress to change the qualifying format, so 2 votes for what they're worth, right? We both happen to enjoy what Dick Simon has done for motorsports. We mentioned, I think, last week that Dick always has a new sponsor. He is a great promoter of our sport that we enjoy and we're involved with. And he's a unique type of guy, a skydiving champion, a skiing champion, the eldest driver in the 500 at the age of 53, and the only guy I know that has a race shop in a firehouse, right? And here's something that Donald worked on for us.
The old Claremont Firehouse. But it's not a firehouse anymore. It's the headquarters for Dick Simon Racing. Well, Dick, this is really nice in here, and we'd love for you in a few minutes to give us a tour and tell us where the pole was and the bell and everything, but this is unique. Why the firehouse in Claremont? How did this come about?
Well, Donald, actually, when we went to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway my first time here in 1970, we didn't have hardly a dollar, actually. We had an old open-wheel trailer and a station wagon, and I talked to Clarence Cagle about using the Speedway garages all summer as our shop, and that lasted. The Speedway was kind enough to let us use that as the shop until they decided to remodel. And at that point, I'd never given any thought to another shop. And all of a sudden, we were leaving for Portland for the race up there, and our place was going to be tore down. And I was told that I had to get the cars out right away. My wife and I panicked, and we got in our car, and we started driving around. We live here in Claremont, and we started driving around looking for a place to work out of. We couldn't find anything that we liked, and we drove by the firehouse here, and there was a little tiny sign in the window that said, for rent. So we called, and it was a Claremont Fire Department that owned it, and so they worked out a deal with us, and we have an option to purchase, which we're exercising, and we've blacked and white tiled the floor and changed the shop around, and actually, it's just ideal. And I really have to thank the Speedway because it's so perfect for us, the way the whole shop is made up, and it would never have happened if they didn't remodel the Speedway. We'd probably still be working out of there.
Well, now you're in here and you're established. Take us on a little tour and show us what used to be here and what's here now.
Well, the firehouse, as you know, is a place where a lot of the firemen spend a great deal of time. And so this particular firehouse had sleeping quarters over in the corner over here, where we use now as a paint shop. And we keep a little bit of moisture in there. We wet down the floor. You can see the cement floor. And that keeps the dust out. Then we have a vacuum system so that when we close all of the doors, the dust and everything is out. And just that little tiny little paint shop has created, with the help of course, our painter Luke, who has done a phenomenal job. We won 2 years in a row the contest for the prettiest cars at the opening races. And I'm kind of proud because that used to be the bunk area. That's where the firemen all slept. And they had a little TV, a little air conditioner in there. And, of course, the door on one end goes into what we have turned into our office. That was a little recreation room for them. They had a little ping-pong table in there and a few other things. Then the door on the other side of that goes into the restroom, the shower, and the men's room. And then the next one is the ladies' room. And then right behind that is a most beautiful kitchen. In fact, a lot of housewives would love to have this kitchen. It's got an old-fashioned, beautiful stove with a gas, you know, and flat burners and all of that type of thing. And then a long, huge circle in the kitchen with stainless steel sinks, and we utilize that for a drying shop. We actually close that off, and Luke turns up the oven, and we can take the parts in there and get the temperature up around 120 degrees and heat the parts. Then right alongside of the kitchen is our place where we have made a leveling platform to level the cars for setting all of the weights. And we have all the instrumentation, little scales, and we can set the weights within a quarter, half a pound per wheel. That's very important. Right next to that is our machine shop. And over in the corner there, we've got the lathes and the heliarcs and the little sanders and grinders and things that we use to build small parts. And as you come on around the shop, then the next bin is the bin where our 86 car from last year is sitting right now. But that is our area where we do the rear ends. And as the season progresses, in other words, that car will come out of there now, and the rear ends, when they're overhauled, will be overhauled in that bin. The next bin is for the one car to be worked on. As you notice, the benches run parallel to the car.
Yes.
And that keeps a situation where all of the parts that come off the car from the left side go on the bench on the left. All of the parts that come off the car on the right side go on the bench on the right. And that way, when the car then comes back, the pieces come back from Magnaflux and Zyglo, they're put back onto the benches on the sides that they come. They're marked left and right. And then there's two people working on the car, and one person starts on one side and the other person starts on the other. And when they're done, the car is then taken back to the corner and weighed again. And this that we have over here is the other car. We have two-car team. We have Ludwig Heimrath driving the McKinsey car with the Tim Horton as the associate sponsor. And then we have myself driving the sound design car with Uniden as the associate sponsor.
Now you're in here and you're established. Do you feel like, you know, have you outgrown the place yet? Is that ever going to happen, or how does this work for you?
Well, Donald, I feel that when you're on, say, a certain given sponsorship funds to work with, that it's extremely important you put every dollar where it counts. And I don't think we could find a better shop or a better facility for us to possibly use and be as satisfactorily taken care of for all of our different duties. Now, we could go over to Gasoline Alley and have a shop like Vince Granatelli that just bought the Cotter True Value shop over there. I mean, they've got 40,000 square feet in one building and I don't know how much in another. You can go to Alex Foods, who's got a big, huge building. You can go to somebody else. I don't know what we'd do with all of that space other than pay an extra heat bill and this, because this is just so perfect for us. Our office is in there. That's more than adequate. 2 desks. That's all we need. We have 2-car team, and we've got 2 separate bins for the 2 cars. We've got our little area here where you and I can talk today, and we can discuss the car that's going to be used in the rookie test. We can have more than ample room here. It does everything we need, and I would hate to see us move anywhere else. Even if somebody came up with a ton of money, I don't think we'd go buy a bigger building.
The amazing Dick Simon, not only does he take care of his own sponsors, he even slips in some from the other teams as well. But at the first part of the interview, he was talking about towing race cars on an open trailer. And, of course, that was the way it was done until just a few years ago. Now they have all those elaborate transporters. Here's Gary.
In 1959, Bob Wilkie said to master mechanic A.J. Watson, "I want to go racing, and I have about $50,000 to play with." By the early 60s, we could buy a Watson Roadster for $10,500, stick in a $6,000 offie, come to the Speedway and be competitive. In fact, some teams contested the entire championship season for less than $100,000. That was more than 25 years ago, back when the race cars came to the Speedway on the back of open trailers or on a flatbed truck. But these are the 80s. Cars ride in style in the back of these transporters. In fact, these are built to haul up to 3 race cars, an entire machine shop, all the spares. In fact, a car can even be built or rebuilt inside one of these transporters. Once here, of course, all the machinery then is moved into the garage area. The cost factor, well, we talked about racing the entire championship season back in the 60s for $100,000. One of these babies will set you back more than $250,000. All raising the cost of racing. Okay, so by late afternoon, we had 33 qualifiers. We had some bumps. We had a field with an average of 207.194, and that, I think, is the first time in, several years that the field was actually slower than the preceding year.
It's happened from time to time. I don't recall the last time it was slower, but it's, you know, it's happened.
It didn't start out that way, though. Opening weekend, I think it was Michael Andretti went 210.
Waved off, yeah.
Poncho was 210, well, I mean, the first weekend of practice,
yes,
so
sure.
The indications were that we have a very fast record month speed-wise, but actually the field average is 3.086 miles per hour slower than the field last year.
And it's interesting, the number of 86 chassis that are in there.
Yeah, we talked about the great job that Phil Kruger had done last year by putting an 85 chassis, a march in the show, the only one-year-old chassis last year, and this year we have 11 86 marches, and one will start in the front row.
And people like Tony Bettenhausen said, hey, we made the right decision. We kept our 86.
Well, I had talked to Tony back in April, and I asked him about an 87, and he said no. He said they're not changing the rules. The 86 will be competitive, and how prophetic, because we have 11 in the field, and then, of course, we had Mears going with an 86 after electing not to go with the PC-16. 5 Lolas in the field, and, of course, 2 are in the front row. We have 28 marches, 11 are 86s. And look at the variety of engines, Donald. I don't recall this many.
It's been quite a while.
Yeah, and next year we'll have the Porsche.
That's supposed to be on its way.
So we have the 4 of the Ilmor Chevrolet engines. We have 22 Cosworth Racing engines, the Brabham Honda, and we have the 1 Chevy V6 Turbo, which, of course, was qualified by George Snyder. Okay, let's take a look now at the starting lineup for the 71st running of the Indy 500 for the first time in 20 years. The man from Nazareth, Pennsylvania, by way of Trieste, Italy, will start on the pole. Mario Andretti. Now, it's been 20 years since he's been on the pole, but he was a fast qualifier.
1976.
76. All right. In row 1, Mario Andretti, not a new track record in the Hannah Car Wash Lola at 2:15.3. And Bobby Rahal, the defending champion, at 2:13.3. And Rick Mears, a two-time champion in number 8. That is the 86 March with the Chevrolet, the Elmore Chevy. So we have 2 Elmore Chevys in the front row, and he's just over 2:11.
And then in the second row, we have 4-time winner A.J. Foyt. And in 1967, he started 4th and 1. In 1977, he started 4th and 1. And it's 1987. A lot of people like the fact that he's starting 4th again for his 30th consecutive 500-mile race. Then next to him, we have Roberto Guerrero with finishes of 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Will it go up to 1st this year? A lot of people are looking for that to happen as probably the best possibility of a non-winner in the field to win this year. And then on the outside of the second row, Dick Simon with his best starting position ever, 209 miles an hour with one of the 87 Lolas with a Cosworth.
Eddie Sachs always said if he ever won that race, he would talk all night long at the victory dinner, and I think Dick Simon would do the same thing. Ari Leyendijk, the Dutchman who now resides up in Wisconsin, car 71, a good ride. And Johnny Rutherford, the middle of row 3, he is a 3-time champion. And then it's Michael Andretti. And, of course, Michael started from the front row last year, former co-rookie of the year with Guerrero.
I think the longest acceptance speech I've ever heard by anybody was Dick Simon in 1970 when he was a rookie in the Indianapolis 500.
We have a wrong number there on Johnny Rutherford, by the way. He'll be driving car number 21 on race day.
Okay, now in the fourth row, we have 2-time world champion Emerson Fittipaldi from Brazil with the Patrick Racing Team at 2:05. And then in the middle of that row, there's Ludwig Heimrath Jr. with the highest starting rookie, although not the fastest rookie in the field, Dick Simon's teammate. And then on the outside of the fourth row, making his 3rd start in the Indianapolis 500, is Rich Vogler with Living Well sponsorship, and of course Jonathan Bird from Johnson County.
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Absolutely.
Row 5, another rookie, Jeff McPherson. That is a Honda-powered car, part of the Gallus Racing Team. At 2:05, Scotty Brayton, and that is, that's not Scotty Brayton's number either, so we'll have to correct that as we go. He's in number 91.
That's the original 37, but it's going to show as 91
it will show
on
as
race
91.
day.
Yeah. Many of these cars were qualified as T cars, so they'll go back on race day to the original number, so that may be a bit confusing to you. Jeff Brabham, then we'll be starting outside row 5 in car 15.
And then we have Gary Battenhausen on the inside of the 6th row, and I think starting in the 500 means more to Gary than probably any other driver. And that's the Genesee Beer Wagon with Galen Fox as the chief mechanic and
Dick Hammond
as the car owner. And then in the middle of that row, we have Danny Sullivan, the 85 winner. They pulled the Penske PC-16. This is the 86 March with the Elmore Chevrolet. And then on the outside is Fabrizio Barbarza with car number 12. Frank Alciero's entry.
And now we move to row number 7. Gordy Johncock returns after a 2-year sabbatical, driving car number 2. It is a March Buick. Derek Daly in car 77, also powered by a Buick. And Al Unser Sr., who took over for the injured Danny and Gaius outside row 7.
And then we go to 83 winner Tom Snever, Al Unser Jr., and Randy Lewis, the rookie.
And then it's Tom Snever, who had all kinds of trouble this season. Car 33, this Gold Bandit, Al Unser Jr., who also had his trouble in practice. And Randy Lewis, who was ecstatic when he qualified yesterday.
Well, I think we've well established that row, so let's go to row number 9. We've got Kevin Cogan, Jose Garza, and Stan Fox, another rookie in the lineup.
And in row 10, Tony Bettenhausen, the fastest qualifying rookie, and the youngest, Davy Jones, at the age of 22, and then Pancho Carter, the veteran, outside row 10.
And then finally, the 11th row, we've got Ed Pym in his 3rd 500, George Snyder back again, and then finally Steve Chassie starting on the outside of the last row.
So 2 weeks of practice and 4 days of qualifying, and now the next time on the track will be on Thursday for Carburation Test Day. And, of course, we'll have, following that, the Miller Pit Stop Contest for you Thursday evening here on Channel 4. And then look for our special race preview on Saturday evening. Don, once again, thanks for being with us again this year.
Thanks,
and hopefully
Gary.
we'll do it all again next year. Special thanks to Dean McDowell and Peggy McClellan for putting together all the feature material and helping us out. And, of course, as we do every year, we like to not only mention the drivers that made the show and the drivers we talked to all month long, but we like to salute those guys that tried so hard, put in such an effort, and in some cases are recovering from injuries at Methodist Hospital. So we salute, as we leave you this evening, all the guys that didn't make the show. Good night.